Good evening, everyone. It's nice to see folks on this meeting and have an opportunity to talk to you tonight about ARPA. As always, this meeting is being recorded by the City of Greenfield. If anyone else is recording this meeting, if you would please let us know right now, that would be great. All righty, thank you. And if you are planning to speak during the public comment period, if you wouldn't mind putting your name in the chat box, then I can keep track of who to call on. So happy to have you put your name in there, and when it comes time, I will put the chat box up and be happy to call on you for your ideas and your thoughts. See other people joining the meeting. So nice to have you all here. And as you might imagine, it's a daunting task to receive essentially a windfall of millions of dollars. Along with the COVID-19 pandemic, I did not expect to also receive money, you know, in the amount of many millions of dollars with which to assist us in recovering from the campaign. So in some ways, I suppose if there's a silver lining to the COVID-19 pandemic, which unfortunately is still with us, it is this ARPA money. So we'll learn more about it this evening, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Once it was settled and I knew how much money we were receiving, I reached out to all of our department heads, I think it was probably in July, and asked them to please submit to me their thoughts on how they could use, what they could do with X amount of dollars, and asked them to present me with a rough budget of what it is that they might like to see us spend the money on that might assist them in each department, particularly those relevant departments that were relevant to the guidelines for ARPA. So that's part of the process. We also reached out to a few local stakeholders and asked them for their thoughts, and have been talking to the city council all along at various meetings and have asked them to send us some thoughts on how to spend ARPA money as well. So for the presentation this evening, the rules of engagement are, well, first of all, just to let you know, the presentation will be short. So I'm not going to be up here talking ad infinitum. It will be short. I would like you to hold your comments and questions until the end. And as I said, for those of you who joined just a little bit later after I got started, if you want to offer a suggestion during the public comment period, please put your name in the chat and I will try to keep track of it that way. And I would like to see you discuss what you'd like to see done with the money, now knowing what the parameters of it are. I don't necessarily want to hear what you don't want to see done with it. That's not the point of ARPA. So believe me, there are plenty of restrictions on it, but there's also many ways that the city of Greenfield can benefit from the money that we have. And my guiding principle, one of my guiding principles, was to use it in a way that would benefit as many people as possible within each category in the city of Greenfield as I could. So it's not intended for pet projects. It's intended for use for things that we perhaps wouldn't be able to fund. A lot of them are capital expenses for quite some time, or they're just things that we've always thought would be good additions to how we run the city, but we haven't been able to, come up with the extra money to do it. So some of those, that is one of the guiding principles that and probably the main guiding principle that as I've been thinking about ways in which to spend the money. And with that, I believe I will, I'll get started. Okay. I think I will get started. Okay, why are we not moving? Hold on 1 second while I do this. Okay, just making sure that you can see the screen and you can see the presentation. So I'll get started next. So what is ARPA? ARPA stands for the American Rescue Plan Act. By now, I think most of us know that. It is a $1.9 trillion federal relief package that has been sent to 360 billion for state and local government and fiscal recovery funds. Somewhere in that 360 billion is our share. It was signed into law on March 11th, 2021. Those are the bones of it. The state of Massachusetts received a significant amount of money. The Massachusetts share was $5.1 billion. On the right-hand side, there are some of the examples of what they have, what the governor has set aside or in his mind wants to spend some of the $5.1 billion on. It's $100 million for broadband, $1 billion for home ownership and housing development, $1 billion for critical environmental energy and environmental and energy initiatives, and of course the $350 million for small business help and downtown revitalization that you see there, and $100 million for parks, recreation, open spaces, and an additional $100 million for tourism. Those are not the only things, but I thought those are some of the more relevant things that we would like to see. And to a certain extent, the city of Greenfield has been doing something of a wait and see to see what he was putting forward as what would be available to cities and towns in Massachusetts from the 5.1 million, so as to be able to leverage our money against the money that we could also apply to the state for. We've been advised by many people within state government as well as within the federal government to not spend every last dollar of your 5.1, of your your ARPA money until you've had an opportunity to see what you could also get from the state. And so the state of Massachusetts, with its $5.1 million, is over and above what local cities and towns in Massachusetts have received. So our allotment is not included in that amount. We received ours directly from the federal government as a federal grant. The state is required to spend their money in the same categories as the local communities are. So essentially, we are able to access some of that money along with and leverage it along with ours if we are vocal and diligent in asking for it. So for instance, if they put several million into expanding broad, which they have, you are reading the slide there, they have put several $1 million into expanding broadband. We might be able to leverage our dollars if we choose to use it to expand GSET with some of the state's money. The same is true for water and sewer infrastructure. So you get a bigger bang for your buck. We wouldn't have been able to know how to do that until the governor released his plans for the money. It is currently sitting with the legislature right now while they decide if they agree with his plan, if they want to increase his plan in certain areas, if they want to decrease his plan in other areas, or at least make suggestions to him. They've been holding hearings, and as of today, I am not aware that any of this money with the state has been released for us to apply for, but we will keep our eyes on that and look for ways to leverage some of our money once we make our final decisions on how to handle it. What can be done with the money? These 4 categories are the 4 categories where we must spend the money. Within those categories, we supposedly have relatively broad latitude to decide how to spend it. And I think by and large that is the case. But there are some hidden restrictions in all of the somewhat difficult to understand and often interpret government language that have to be considered as we prioritize our projects and begin to spend on them and then report on that spending. But we can spend money to respond to the public health emergency or its negative economic consequences, of which we have endured many. We can spend it on premium pay for eligible workers, so our essential workers. We can spend it on revenue replacement, and I'll go over each one of these as part of our presentation tonight. And we can spend it on infrastructure, and they have defined infrastructure as broadband, water, and sewer. So what is Greenfield Share? Greenfield Share is $5,158,534.02 to be exact. I was a bit disappointed because in March, when they first started sending this information out to cities and towns, we started with 6 million. So somewhere along the line, we lost several $100,000. And I think it had to do with just doing their final calculations. It's all done by population. So that $5 million is paid to us in 2 equal payments as of, well, they're plus or minus $1 here, $1 there. 2 equal payments as of August 2021 and August 2022. We now have in hand $2.975 million to spend. We'll receive the remaining balance on that in August of 2022. So not all cities and towns are created equally when it comes to our allocation. It is, as I mentioned, largely based on population. So for example, Pittsfield has received a total of 32, well, they'll follow the same guidelines. They didn't get it all at once. They receive a total of $32.4 million. Northampton receives a total of $21.7 million. There are also some other guidelines that determine how, say, a city of Greenfield size and population and is categorized by the federal government. I don't want to go in. I can quickly get into the weeds on that, so I'm not going to do that. That also means that, we don't get those kinds of large amounts of money. So relatively speaking, while it's wonderful to have that $5 million that we have, it is not a lot of money in the grand scheme of things when we start talking about funding the kinds of projects that would be nice to be able to fund with this. So clearly those communities can do much, much more with their money than, say, Greenfield can, simply by the virtue of the fact that they've got more. So with that in mind, let's look more closely at the categories and how we might spend within them. So in terms of response to public health, the public health emergency, or the pandemic's negative economic consequences, we could use it to hire additional health inspectors, or another health nurse for the Greenfield Health Department. Those were requests from Jennifer Hoffman, our health director. We could purchase and build public bathrooms. For instance, the Portland Loo. And I don't have a picture of the Portland Loo, but it's a very useful, it's a very self-contained, ideal public bathroom because it's easy to keep clean, it's safe, and so forth and so on. It's very, very expensive. But many city councilors have chimed in and said that's what they'd like to see, given the fact that the public bathrooms that we have in Greenfield, well, certainly the public bathrooms that were in businesses were closed for a long time. Some of them still are. And the public buildings were closed. It became fairly dire that we put out public bathrooms, but we have had some issues with having those out there. This could be a solution, 1 or 2 Portland Loos within the downtown area. We could use it within this category to improve community outdoor spaces because it was important for people to be outdoors. I'm noticing in the chat that some folks are having trouble hearing me. I hope that this is not the case for everyone. The rest of you hopefully are able to hear me on this. I don't know, Chief of Staff, if you are monitoring and can see if it's a constant problem or is it maybe just 1 or 2. Within this category, we can also do assistance to households. By that I mean potentially set up a fund for rental assistance or first and last payments on rent. Many creative ideas have come my way on that. And we can use it for further assistance to small businesses as well. Those are just very short categories in how we might be able to spend it. In the case of premium pay for eligible essential city workers in the critical infrastructure sectors. Those sectors are health, childcare, transportation, public safety, sanitation. This would be a one-time bonus for fire, EMT, police, DPW, health employees, offering additional support to those who have borne and will continue to bear the greatest health risks because of their service in these critical infrastructure areas. So that's certainly something that is under consideration by the city. Revenue replacement for the city of Greenfield. This is, I'm only going to hit the high points of this for the simple reason that, again, this is it's, as I say, it involves a very complicated process to calculate our revenue loss as of 12/31/20, 12/31/21, and 12/31/22 and 23. We are considering doing some revenue replacement because we certainly lost a fair amount of revenue in 2020. We're just now calculating our revenue for 2021, at least up through September, and really won't know exactly where we are till we get closer to the end of 2021. It cannot be used to reduce our tax rate. It cannot be used to replenish rainy day or reserve funds or to pay interest or principal on outstanding debt or to pay settlements or judgments against the city. And it cannot be used to pay pension liabilities. These are not my rules. These are the rules of the federal government on how you can deal with a revenue replacement. So essentially, revenue replacement will help us, should we decide to use some of the funds in that way, to provide government services to the extent of the reduction in the revenue experienced due to the pandemic. It's, as I say, a little difficult to get more explicit than that. Just know that we are considering that, but I would not call it right now one of our highest priorities. And then we come to infrastructure, broadband, water, and sewer. We could certainly use it to complete the build out of GSET. There's so many areas of the city that in which GSET is not reached. They haven't reached there yet. And they are doing it as they are able to fund it with new sources of revenue and from new subscriptions and other areas. And as we could also spend it on some water and sewer projects. They're very specific, though, in that they have to relate to drinking water and wastewater infrastructure. And as far as water and sewer is concerned, projects related to managing or treating stormwater, which must have a water quality benefit. We are certainly considering many of those. I feel like all of these on this slide are all of those areas where I would seek to leverage what money we have with what money the state is going to make available for us to apply for through, I'm sure, their grant process. Again, like I say, we haven't seen a lot of details on those as of yet. But what I want to make clear is that we are certainly planning to take advantage of as many of these opportunities as we can, because it will be a huge boon to the city of Greenfield to be able to complete, well, to be able to even begin to fund some of these important projects that show up on our capital budget, for which we may have to do borrowing for. So to the extent that we can accomplish some of the, particularly in the area, well, in all three of these areas, in broadband, in water and sewer, we will look seriously at using the money that way. And that brings me to the end of my presentation, and I can now open it up to you. So let me stop sharing my screen here. And there we go. Sorry. So, is there anyone out there? Just jump in if you'd like to offer an opportunity to give me an idea about how you would like to spend ARPA money within those 4 categories. So remember, public health, economic development, premium pay, revenue replacement, and infrastructure.
This is Nancy Hazard. Do you have any rules about how long each person can speak?
Oh,
That's dangerous.
yeah.
I'd be happy.
How could I, of all people, not set up a rule?
Well, I was aiming for 3 minutes, which is difficult, but I'd love to go first.
Yeah, 3 minutes is good, Nancy.
Okay, great.
It probably would not be more. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I have 4 things I want to talk about housing. So this has to do with the first item that you mentioned. And let's see. I'm sorry, I'm trying to time myself, but now that's the trouble. Okay, I can't do that. It's too complicated. Homelessness is a public health emergency, and the lack of housing for all income levels has had negative impacts on Greenfield. So that's what I'm addressing. We all know the housing crisis has been exacerbated by COVID, and people are moving here from urban areas, causing housing, exacerbating our shortage, and also raising the cost of housing. And of course, lots of people have lost their jobs, which has led to increased homelessness. I'm going to talk about 4 things, and the first one has to do with homelessness. Homelessness is clearly a public health emergency. In preparing for Greening Greenfield's forum on housing, I ran across an inspiring idea that's working in Finland, New York, Boston, and several communities in Massachusetts, and it's affordable. The housing first approach supports the building of supportive housing for the homeless. Studies in New York and Boston show that it's less expensive to house someone than to service someone who lives on the street. In fact, on average, they found you can save $10,000 a year per person if you provide housing, because the cost or the use of emergency services is dramatically decreased. And we have some reports on our website about that. We have several regional organizations that support the housing first approach, but they have not had the funds to bring that vision to reality. I'm recommending that we jumpstart this effort, allocating some ARPA money to this effort, which would demonstrate our commitment to build supportive housing for the homeless, and this would make us eligible for additional funding from the Massachusetts Department of Housing and Community Development, and perhaps also the ARPA money that you just mentioned that the state will be spending on housing. The other 3 ideas are much simpler. One has to do with supporting the idea that Tim Dolan put out there of creating some mixed income housing on Hope Street. I think that's a fabulous idea. Also, the idea that the interfaith has been council has been doing for quite a while is having some kind of a revolving loan fund that offers first and last rent and security deposit, which enable lower income people to actually get into housing. And the last one is, as we know, we've been looking at those vacant downtown upper stories for years and years and years. And I'm wondering if the ARPA money could be used to explore the possibility of, are there some elevators that could be built and if we could get that money and then also get a commitment from the building owners that if they got an elevator, which hopefully would service more than one building, that they would renovate the building and then bring it and offer it at market rate housing or to businesses. So thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to hearing other people's thoughts.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else want to speak? I'll respond to that, Nancy. It's definitely, all of those ideas are good. I want to just double check what you said. You said the Interfaith Council already has a rental assistance first and last month program that they work on.
That's correct.
That's good to know. I know I had been, they're on my list of people to check with, and I haven't done that yet, so that's good to know. We do have some other resources that we can put forward that have come in fairly recently that do not involve our money that we are considering using for some of those programs that you talked about just then, or it's certainly helping. So that's not to say that some of the ARPA money wouldn't go to some housing ideas. It's just that the emphasis that I'm looking for is more on direct assistance to homeowners or people who want to purchase homes and or to renters. And a housing production is a very expensive proposition. So I'm not saying that we might not partner with someone on a project. We might be able to do that. And there's a couple of projects that have come before us. I see Tom Gorino on there, and he certainly talked to me about a project. So glad to have your input on the housing piece of it. So anybody else?
I would like to see some money invested in our water sewer infrastructure and maybe a downtown revitalization program to get the downtown looking nicer.
And who's speaking, if I may? So I'm taking notes.
I'm sorry?
Who is speaking? I'm taking notes, so I wanted to be able to.
Nancy Wood.
Oh, Nancy, hi. Okay.
Okay.
Water sewer infrastructure. You have your phone
You
on.
have your phone, I see.
We're getting an echo.
We're getting an echo.
And
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Hello, can you hear me?
I certainly can.
Oh, terrific. Okay, this is Sandy Kosterman from out on Barton Road. I live in North Greenfield and we haven't had the cheese set out here. And I would really like to see it come out this far. So if you can build it out this way, that would be wonderful. I like your suggestion of that, Mayor Roxann. And also the water and sewer. We've had some water main breaks around town. And we've had one out here on Country Club Road, I think a year or two ago. And I understand that some of the underground infrastructure for water and sewer is not that great. So a lot of it is considerably older and may need to be replaced. And also the wastewater treatment plant down on Deerfield Street. I know that's a lot to consider, but I'm sure you'll consider those and hopefully something can be done to help.
Thank you, Sandy. You're absolutely correct on all of those things, and they are definitely, as I mentioned earlier, under consideration. Pam Kelly brings up a very good point in her chat here, and it is one of the things that I have had that I've been thinking about, and that is that broadband water and sewer will almost most assuredly be coming, other funds through the infrastructure bill will be coming out to cities and towns once the Congress finally decides to get it passed. So again, an opportunity to leverage funds and not have to spend all of our ARPA funds. I can tell you right now, I could spend that entire $5 million on just water and sewer.
Yep.
So, so it'll be something that we think about. I do want to remind those of you, as we're talking about this, that we are getting those funds in two different, they call them tranches. Strange word, but so currently we have the 2.975 million that we have, but we will have an opportunity to spend additional money in as of August of 2022. So you may not hear of ARPA money being spent on water and sewer projects until we sort of sort through where we might be able to get additional funds from other sources on that. And the same to a certain extent with GSET. But they are all those three things are definitely high priority. Not the only priorities, but high priority for some portion of the money. And again, as I mentioned earlier, high priority for us to go after additional funds through the federal infrastructure bill and through the governor's $5 billion of ARPA money that he says he wants to put forward for broadband, water, and sewer. Not all of it, of course, but quite a few $1 million of it. So Tom Garino, I see that you have a few ideas for housing as well. You want to join us?
Thank you, Mayor. Of course, you have one proposal into your office already for your consideration. I just wanted to dovetail on the potential of doing some housing partnership on the land where the temporary fire station is now. If that's an area where the city may want to go, the Housing Authority and the GHAI stand ready to be a partner in that. I want to also suggest that we look at perhaps some non-conforming lots in town that may be a little too small that the town may own, or it may be a house that could be subdivided into having a small non-conforming lot where we might be able to put some affordable and workforce level housing, if you will, on those non-conforming lots. I have done that in the past. It's been very successful. And perhaps we can go to DHCD with some of the ARPA money in the second round, if you will, as match to do to propose some housing of that nature.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Fortunately, we will be finished with the Hope Street lot in time to at least, I mean, if we were to consider that, to at least accommodate that potential with some of the ARPA money. We have until 2026 to spend it. So we hope they're out of there within 2 years.
Certainly.
I see that Pam Kelly has
Thank you, Mayor.
a 4 for the price of 1. I'm anxious to see that, hear that one. Pam, do you want to speak? Remember, you have 3 minutes.
So can you hear me now?
I can hear you pretty well.
Okay, so 4 for the price of 1. I mean, the question is can we use telehealth? We have a big problem in the Greenfield area in the sense that people need sometimes specialists. They have to go all the way down to Springfield. Transportation is impossible. And we could use telehealth system out of, let's say, the emergency setup at the middle school, which is our emergency shelter where all the cots are and where we're expected to go in emergency. And if we set it up with solar and electric storage so that it could survive a 2-week power outage, it would fit into the state's plan for developing resilient backup plans for the climate change crisis that we now have no choice, we're going to be experiencing. And if we did that right, we could do the planning for the fire, police, safety complex. near there somewhere, so that it also had solar backup and emergency power and storage, and now it would have telehealth, maybe radio, and really good infrastructure for communications with not just the Springfield specialists, but also Boston. And then if we did that right, this is the third possibility, and we let the contracts out, and we, when we put the contracts out, we said that the people who get the contracts have to use the contract money, not just for the building, but also for workforce development, so that they're training new people, because we are going to hit a major crunch when all the climate change stuff hits. We're going to run out of electricians. They're already sparse. And so if the people who are installing this new and green infrastructure are also training a workforce in the use of new green infrastructure, we would be ahead. And finally, this is something that the fourth thing, if I'm not sure about this because I'm not quite sure of how the finances of the municipality work, but if the municipality could do all that with a loan fund, so that we were paying ourselves back through a municipal loan fund, we're holding on to the money in the sense that we're slowly paying ourselves back over 20 years, then we would have the resources that could be used for commercial pace. And you now know what the mayor now knows, I know. Most people probably don't, but commercial pace financing to rebuild commercial buildings in Greenfield so that they are energy efficient. They are equipped with solar energy. They're sort of like Hawks and Reed. They're operating at almost zero utility costs because they're equipped with solar and heat pumps. And
Thank you. Thank you so
Okay.
much. That's
okay, I
that's-
wrote it and sent it in.
Oh, okay. All right. Good to
You got it
know.
in a written paper.
Yeah, good to know, and I appreciate that. Some very interesting thoughts there. Anybody else want to speak?
I have a couple of things.
Okay. Introduce.
Sure. This is Adrian
Oh.
Nunez.
Hi, Adrian. Sure.
Hey. I'm at 71 Conway Street. And thank you, Mayor, for having this listening session. I think this is really, really great. I appreciate that you're opening this up for conversation with the public. I think that it's incredibly important to continue that as we move forward. I worry that a short listening session with some, a small amount of participants and a little bit of limited public comment is not quite enough. I think folks are just starting to really get the information that they need and have a full understanding of what's going on. So I would encourage additional public comment opportunities and potentially putting together a committee and doing our best to make sure that the community is represented in full as best as possible. With that in mind, I'm wondering if there is any opportunity to use some of this funding for a community needs assessment to really get a feel for what exactly our community needs. I will second some of what's been said about housing. It is such a critical need on so many levels. There's such a shortage. And the pretty intense increase in cost of rent is being felt at a lot of levels. So that's something that I would support, an effort to support our households in that way. And then I'm also just want to kind of plug that this may be an opportunity for us to get creative about some policy experiments, right? Either through some housing support. I'm curious how we can have some childcare support, something of this nature to really, again, respond to the needs that our community has. In terms of infrastructure and water, I will definitely plug looking at our school buildings and making sure that we are prioritizing the needs of Greenfield youth. And then last but not least, I'm sure I'll have other ideas at some point. I just want to mention that at the state level, it's my understanding that at the state level, there will be some federal matching of efforts to create community-based mobile crisis intervention services. And I think it's incredibly important for us at the municipal level to not only support this effort at the state level and support engagement at the state level, but also to pay attention to what our role could be and how we could use our municipal level funding to essentially kind of complement any state level effort that could be coming down. And then I guess I thought it was last, but definitely last. I think it's really important for us to use this as an opportunity for regional engagement and regional leadership, and to engage in conversation with the rest of Franklin County and see how we can actually pull together and use our resources for the benefit of the entire county. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. All right, how about anyone else up there? I'm not seeing anyone in the chat. Let me see if anyone has their hand raised and I'm missing it. Okay. Well, we have a few more minutes, but if people are satisfied for now and no one wants to speak up on ways in which we might be able to spend our ARPA money, let me just say this. Thank you so much for your input and for attending. And I take your point, Adrian, on additional public hearings or certainly listening sessions. I'm sure that we can, over the next, as I say, we'll get more money by August of 2022. We could certainly have more sessions in which to spend that money. Again, 5.158, $5,158,534 sounds like a lot of money. Until you start trying to price out some of the things that we would like to do. So again, I have a commitment to leverage that money as much as I possibly can with federal money and state money. So stay tuned on that front, and I'm one more chance to speak up. All righty. Thank you so much for coming. I very much appreciate it. And don't forget, you can send an email to Mayor with your thoughts. I know sometimes people think it takes them a while to figure out exactly what it is they either want to say or give us an idea. So we'll certainly accept your emails at Mayor. Please do put in your subject line ARPA spending or ARPA idea, ARPA spending idea, or something of that nature, so that when we see it come in under the Mayor because we get a lot of emails through that, when we see it come in, we'll know to set it aside for looking at with an eye towards how to spend the ARPA money. But I do really appreciate your coming on, and thanks again for taking part of your day to do this. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Mayor, for holding this. I really appreciate it. This is Nancy.
Sure,
So everyone on the call feels the same way.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much.
Good night.
Bye now.